History isn't just written in books. It lingers in the walls of abandoned schools, in the pages that were torn out, in the dreams that were never allowed to grow. There are chapters of history the world rarely hears in full, too painful to remember, too complicated to forget, and sometimes too dangerous to discuss. This is not a story of villains and heroes. It is a story of belief, taken to the edge, a dream of transformation that became a decade of upheaval. This is the Cultural Revolution. From 1966 to 1976, China confronted itself. A movement intended to protect a revolution, reshaped society. A campaign to build a new future, fractured the present. What began as a call for purity became a storm without a map. Before we go back, before we try to understand, let us begin with the voices who lived it. A diary, written by someone who simply called themselves a student. Their name is not important. Their story is. To understand the Cultural Revolution, we return to a moment when China stood at a crossroads, a nation rebuilding after war, a society trying to reinvent itself, a people asked to choose between the past and a promise. The People's Republic of China was young. A revolution had remade the nation on paper, industrially, ideologically, socially. But the journey from vision to reality was uneven. Agricultural reforms shifted land and labor. Factories rose, but resources strained. Campaigns succeeded, and others fell short. The nation looked forward, but stability was not guaranteed. Within leadership circles, debates grew. How fast should China modernize? Who defined the future, and what should be done with those considered ideologically impure? These questions did not stay in meeting rooms. They flowed into streets, classrooms, and homes. It began with ink, with posters on walls, with calls to defend the revolution from invisible enemies. Students were told, "History is calling you." For many, it felt like destiny. Across the country, young people took up armbands. They became the Red Guards, guardians of a dream, or so they believed. Mass rallies, newspapers echoing slogans, campaigns to eliminate the four olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas. To build something new, the past had to be dismantled. But what happens when the past is also where people keep their identity? In the rush for purity, the definition of enemy grew wider. Sometimes, all it took was a rumor, a word, a book, a family history. Fear can be persuasive, even when no one gives it a voice. Classrooms fell silent. Teachers were criticized, sometimes publicly. Schools and universities paused formal instruction. Education became political. For a generation, textbooks changed faster than childhoods. Not all Red Guards agreed with each other. Factions emerged, each believing they were the true defenders of the revolution. Debates turned to confrontations. Streets became arenas where ideology collided with reality. When belief meets absolute conviction, certainty can become a dangerous currency. This was only the beginning. Excellent. We continue. Revolutions are not static. They move. They grow. They evolve. And sometimes, they turn around to face the people who birthed them. By 1967, the Cultural Revolution had spread across the nation. No province was untouched, no profession exempt, no family immune. What was once a campaign became a current too strong to resist. Words took on lives of their own. Sweep away all monsters and demons. Fight self, criticize revisionism. For some, these were guiding lights. For others, warnings written in daylight. Language became both shield and sword. And when a slogan becomes a measure of loyalty, silence becomes dangerous. In many communities, criticism sessions were held. Public forums where accusations could be made, confessions demanded, loyalties tested. Sometimes they were cathartic. Old grievances aired, power dynamics reversed. Other times, they unraveled the very fabric of trust. What happens to a society when words can change a life? When identity can be questioned overnight? When ideology becomes the new currency of survival? In such moments, certainty becomes an anchor, and those without it drift. The Red Guards, once a unified symbol, began to fracture. Different visions, different interpretations, different loyalties. In some regions, administrations struggled to function. Decision-making slowed. Production faltered. A revolution that sought to simplify society had introduced new layers of complexity. In 1968, a new phase began. Millions of urban youth were sent to the countryside to learn from farmers, to be re-educated by hard labor and rural life. For some, it was transformative, a chance to connect with another side of their nation, to build resilience, to understand sacrifice. For others, it was disorienting, a sudden rupture from home, dreams postponed, futures uncertain. These youths would later be called the Lost Generation, not because they vanished, but because the world they prepared for no longer existed when they returned. Art was not immune. Creativity came with conditions. Revolutionary operas rose, grand, heroic, carefully crafted. Meanwhile, some older art forms faded. Temples turned quiet. Folktales whispered only in private. Classical paintings stored away, their colors waiting for safer years. A culture thousands of years old held its breath. Industry slowed. Agricultural output fluctuated. Record-keeping became harder as priorities shifted from production to ideology. When a society questions itself at every level, how do you measure progress? In numbers, in loyalty, in unity, in survival? There is no simple answer. To understand the Cultural Revolution is not to seek a single truth. It is to hold many truths at once. The idealism of the young, the fear of the accused, the resolve of the devoted, the exhaustion of the uncertain. It is a story of belief, and the cost of belief taken too far. Beyond China, the world watched with curiosity, confusion, and sometimes misconception. For some, the Cultural Revolution was seen as a bold experiment. For others, a warning. Interpretations differed as widely as the nations that made them. But for those living through it, interpretation was a luxury. Life was immediate. Years passed, one by one, like pages in a book that cannot be skipped, only endured. As the 1960s drew to a close, the Cultural Revolution entered its sustained phase. Policies shifted, sometimes subtly, sometimes suddenly, as the nation struggled to balance ideology with necessity. Schools reopened, but with new curriculums. Factories resumed, but with new leadership. Priorities changed, more than once. In a movement defined by change, consistency was rare. In some regions, collective agriculture saw improvement. Communities found rhythm, adapting, surviving, sometimes even thriving. Elsewhere, the strain was harder to mask. Weather, resources, and shifting directives made progress unpredictable. The Cultural Revolution was not a monolith. It did not unfold the same way everywhere. Its impact was not uniform. Understanding it requires acknowledging complexity and contradiction. For many, survival meant adaptation. A change in rhetoric, a shift in posture, a careful reading of the room. For others, survival meant endurance, holding fast to identity, even when identity felt dangerous. The Cultural Revolution reshaped not only institutions, but instincts. Some families were separated. Some never reunited. Some lost members to illness, hardship, or circumstance. Records were not always kept, stories not always shared. In the absence of data, memory becomes the archive. And memory is fragile. Our anonymous diarist writes again, "Hope is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in margins, between lines no one was meant to read." The early 1970s brought gradual recalibration. Policy adjustments, administrative course corrections, selective reopening to the world. New challenges emerged. Old wounds lingered. China continued forward. Imperfect, determined, changed. Schools resumed more structured teaching. Examinations slowly returned. The pursuit of knowledge, long interrupted, began to find its footing again. For a generation, the future was no longer theoretical. It would soon demand answers. Those sent to the countryside returned to cities with calloused hands, hardened resolve, and no clear place to rejoin. Their childhoods had been ideological, their adolescence agricultural, their adulthood undefined. Some rebuilt, some relocated, some sought new identities in a country seeking one too. Outside China, the story was often misunderstood, simplified, misreported, mythologized. Even today, interpretations vary. Historically, politically, emotionally. Understanding requires humility. Knowledge requires nuance. History is not a weapon. It is a mirror, but only if we are willing to look. In 1976, the Cultural Revolution concluded. A decade that felt like a century closed with no celebration, only exhale. Across the nation, people stepped out of a long shadow, blinking into unfamiliar light. Reconstruction, not of buildings, but of trust, would take years. Reconciliation, not of politics, but of memory, would take lives. The Cultural Revolution is not merely history, it is legacy. For some, a lesson. For others, a loss. For all, a reminder. When the storm ended, there was no parade, no anthem of victory, no banner declaring triumph. There was only a nation, looking at itself. Economists, scholars, and historians still debate the full impact. Statistics exist, but they tell only fragments. How do you quantify potential? How do you measure a childhood rerouted? A dream deferred? A mind unmade, then remade? There are calculations no ledger can hold. Rebuilding began quietly. Through hands, not speeches. A library book repaired. A lesson updated. A story shared. For some, this was an era to remember. For others, one to forget. For many, both. Children born after the Cultural Revolution would inherit a country in transition, a nation redefining itself, economically, socially, globally. They would ask questions their parents found difficult to answer, questions shaped not by accusation, but by curiosity. For them, the Cultural Revolution was both distant and painfully near. Memory is not a museum. It is a landscape, eroded by time, reshaped by perspective. Some memories protect us, some memories warn us, and some refuse to fit neatly into either category. The Cultural Revolution left behind not just statistics and slogans, but questions. Questions that echo. Our anonymous diarist writes one last time. They never signed their name. Perhaps they knew they didn't need to, because their story was not just theirs. History does not demand perfection, only honesty. A revolution made of conviction can change a nation. A revolution without reflection can cost it. Belief can build, but it can also burn. The Cultural Revolution is a reminder that the human heart is powerful enough to reshape a country, but also fragile enough to be reshaped by it. If we forget this history, we risk repeating it. If we silence it, we risk misunderstanding it. If we refuse to learn from it, we risk becoming it. The Cultural Revolution is not a weapon. It is not a justification. It is not a relic. It is a mirror. And the question it asks is simple. Will we look away, or will we learn? This has been Chronicle X. History Unfiltered. If you believe history deserves clarity, if you believe stories like this should be told, then help us keep them alive. Like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a chapter. Because history isn't just what happened, it's what happens next when we choose to remember.